This is my apology. I would like to be released at 10. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Mola. So I was saying welcome, Mr. Tobachale and your team. Would like to get straight to the point and ask you to do the opening remarks and lead your team, and then you lead us in the presentations of the work we're doing today.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and members. If you may allow, Honorable Chairperson, I would like to just request that at the end of the presentation, I make a point. It will take just a few minutes. It's a point that I can only be able to make it after the presentation has been made. I am with a team of two Chief Deputy Commissioners, Chief Deputy Commissioner Gatenga, Chief Deputy Commissioner Mulepo. The presentation will be made by Chief Deputy Commissioner Mulepo. There are also Deputy Commissioners and Directors from the department on the platform. I would therefore, through you, Honorable Chairperson, request that we give CDC Mulepo an opportunity to then make the presentation.
Thank you, Tobachale. We're in your hand, Acting Commissioner.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members, the Acting National Commissioner and the colleagues on the platform. I will be taking you through the presentation as indicated by the Acting National Commissioner. I am Anna Mulepo, the CDC Remand Detention. Thank you, DC. With regards to the outline of the presentation will be on the progress regarding the number of absconders and the capacity of community correction system. So with regards to the outline of the presentation, the focus will be on the purpose of the presentation, the legislative and policy mandates of community corrections, and I'll be taking you through the historical background of absconding, how we define absconders within community corrections environment, the possible reasons for absconding, and I'll also be taking you through the community corrections facilities and the caseload within community corrections and capacity. I'll also be taking you through the interventions that the department is currently implementing with regard to absconding and some of the challenges and mitigations that we are currently working on as the department, and that will conclude my presentation. The purpose of this presentation is to brief the portfolio committee regarding the number of absconders within community corrections, outline the strategies or interventions implemented to address the identified challenge of absconders within community corrections, and also provide the capacity of community corrections to monitor parolees and probationers. There are legislative and policy mandates that are governing the department. The next slide, DC. There are legislative and policy mandates governing the department and also the community corrections. The first one being the Correctional Services Act. And according to the Correctional Services Act, the purpose of the system is to contribute to maintaining and protecting a just, peaceful, and safe society, which is according to Section 2 of the Correctional Services Act. And Section 50 of the Correctional Services Act It outlines the objectives of community corrections, that is mainly to afford sentenced offenders an opportunity to serve their sentences in a non-custodial manner and to ensure that persons subjected to community corrections abide by the conditions imposed upon them in order to protect the community from offenses which such persons may commit. We also have section 117, which is critical with regards to escape and absconding. It refers to any person who absconds and thereby avoids being monitored is guilty of an offense. On the next slide is other legislative and policy mandates. We do have the Constitution, Correctional Services Regulation, Criminal Procedure Act, White Paper on Corrections, Probational Services Act, Medium-Term Strategic Framework, National Development Plan, Social Reintegration Policy and Framework, Community Participation Policy, Halfway Houses Policy. So these are not the only legislative and policy mandates that are governing us. So we have just highlighted those few on the presentation. Regarding the historical background on absconding, prior 1991, the parole system was based on aftercare by the welfare departments and the involvement of employees who reported absconding to the Department of Correctional Services. SAPS would then be notified about absconders, who would then be registered with the SAPS Criminal Record Center. And DCS did not perform direct tracing actions, which led to a high number of absconders during that period, that is prior 1991. And later in 1991, correctional and parole supervision was phased in, and physical monitoring of parolees at their residences was intensified to have control over parolees. The absconder population increased rapidly, and tracing was a challenge as documents were not presented to community corrections and the parolee did not report physically at the offices. There were no photos or any other information to assist in tracing or identifying the absconders. DCS then introduced a new release policy in 1994 with strict parole measures, committing to ensure that offenders serve their full sentences. This included the tracing of absconders in order to restore confidence in the parole system. And in addressing the challenges, especially with regards to absconding, DCS further developed internal policies, procedures, and manuals to outline the processes and plans of dealing with absconding. Excuse me. As the department, we then came up with definition as to how are we defining absconding within the department. We referred to absconders as any probationer or parolee who, while under community corrections, changes residence or leaves magisterial district without permission and or ceases reporting or is otherwise not available for supervision. Absconding is the conduct of an offender who fails to comply with the probation or parole process, including not reporting to the correctional or parole officer. When a parolee is declared an absconder, the sentence stops and will continue serving the sentence when traced, and the Correctional Supervision and Parole Board would recommend as such. Based on the historical background provided above, absconders are divided into two categories. We have archived absconders and active absconders. As indicated earlier in the historical background, the archived absconders are parolees who were not supervised from 1991 to 1994. All absconders that fall under the category of offenders that were declared absconders after the sentence expiry date declared absconders just before the sentence expiry date, and there were no conditions set when placed on parole, and there were no documents and warrants which were received by community corrections during placement up to the period of 2004. So those are referred as archived absconders within the department. Then in terms of active absconders, we refer to all offenders that have been in abscondence since 2004 and have a fixed address and supervision condition. So those are the active absconders. There are possible reasons for absconding, which we have identified them as the factors that predict offenders' absconding behavior, and it includes, amongst others, demographics, social, individual, and criminal history factors. There's lack of employment opportunities and poverty, which implies that there is no possibility to survive in one geographical area, especially parolees or probationers from rural villages usually migrate to bigger cities, for example, in Gauteng, to search for job opportunities. The other possible reason is inadequate vehicles within community corrections environment to monitor parolees and probationers, especially in mountainous or no-go areas. There's also inadequate human resources within community corrections. With regard to inadequate human resources, there was no dedicated structure or tracing team to address absconding. The other challenge is changing of support system and or addresses, which makes it possible for offenders to abscond to where it is not known immediately after release. And the other possible reasons is that parolees abscond and avoid being monitored in order to commit other crimes or fear of rejection and stigmatization by communities. Regarding community correction facilities, we are saying that the purpose of establishing community corrections offices are, amongst others, to enable offenders to comply with their conditions, promote greater community involvement, and to promote confidence in non-custodial measures with the judiciary and communities. There are 218 community corrections offices nationally, which are a mix of state-owned and private lease agreements. And in Western Cape, we have 26 COMCO offices, Eastern Cape 40, KZN 36, Gauteng Province 13, LMN 66, and Free State and Northern Cape 37 COMCO offices. DCS has a total of 134 private leases for office accommodation and community corrections offices. We have established service points and satellite offices nationally in order to bring community corrections services closer to the communities where the offenders are residing, especially in rural and remote areas. We have also partnered with non-profit organizations and established halfway houses that are managed by the NPOs, and these halfway houses are assisting in the reintegration of offenders who are due for parole placement and have no monitorable addresses and support systems. Regarding the caseload within community corrections, so the slide there just shows the caseload with number of absconders per region. And as we can see from the table, the current average caseload is 59,617. And the table shows that KZN has the highest numbers of parolees and probationers, which is 12,920, followed by Gauteng, which is 10,725, and Eastern Cape, 10,716, LMN region, Western Cape region, and Free State and Northern Cape region. So in terms of absconders, we do have both active and archived absconders as indicated on the definition. Regarding active absconders, we have 15,721 absconders, and archived absconders, we have 17,211, and in total, we have 32,932 absconders. So in all, the caseload for community corrections, the total is 92,549 when we include both active and archived absconders. With regard to the table that is in front of us, it's just a comparison of average caseload with number of absconders. The table shows that Gauteng has the highest number of absconders, that is 9,033, followed by KZN, Western Cape, LMN, Free State and Northern Cape, and Eastern Cape. So Eastern Cape and Free State and Northern Cape has less absconders as compared to all other regions. The department had intervened in terms of the tracing of absconders. So the slide just indicates the achievements that we did as the department as at 4th of March 2022. The statistics that is provided in front of us is up until the 4th of March. So it's just the Q3 and Q4 will be at the end of March. So the number of the total traced absconders is 1,416, which were traced from the 1st of April 2021 to 4th of March 2022, and more were traced in the third quarter, that is during festive season, where we had more special tracing actions. As indicated on the above table, high numbers of absconders were traced in the Western Cape and LMN. Gauteng also traced some of the absconders during the Operation Okai Mulao, which was conducted jointly with the South African Police Services. Tracing of absconders has been declared as a priority matter within the department. Hence, it is being monitored on a weekly basis through the National Operations Center, that is our NOC. And during that NOC meetings, all the regions report their weekly activities on their weekly tracing activities, which were conducted, and the results thereof. Regarding the community corrections capacity, the table above shows staff establishment of community corrections at head office and within the regions, highlighting the ideal ratio of the number of monitoring and supervision officials and the caseload. One official is doing more than is expected, noting also that some are also heads of community corrections offices, and they are multitasked. The staff complement compromises the efficiency and the effectiveness of physical monitoring and related services at community corrections due to the increase on caseload since 94-95 and lack of specialized posts like liaison officials, absconder tracing units, court officials, criminologists, psychologists, and other specialists. As you can see from the table, the ratio, the ideal ratio should be 1:30, but nationally, the ratio is 1:58, which clearly shows that the physical monitoring of parolees and probationers is compromised because one monitoring official is responsible for 58 parolees and probationers. Okay, next slide. Thank you. With regard to the interventions that we are currently implementing as a department, there are resources. The first one being resources is that we have secured vehicles through a lease model using the RT57 contract cost-based model as approved by National Treasury for more than 500 vehicles, which are going to be distributed to community corrections offices to ensure effective monitoring of parolees and probationers. We have already distributed 34 vehicles to Eastern Cape region. There are learnerships which are placed at community corrections to increase capacity of officials responsible for effective monitoring of parolees and probationers. Tracing teams have also been established in other regions to intensify monitoring and tracing. Absconder name lists are distributed to all structures to assist with the tracing. With regards to physical monitoring of parolees and probationers, as indicated, distribution of vehicles would assist in physical monitoring to ensure that parolees and probationers comply with these set conditions. There are special monitoring which are being conducted in regions, and those special monitoring yielded positive outcomes as indicated earlier in terms of the number of absconders who have been traced. And mainly the purpose of this special monitoring is to enhance compliance with set conditions, trace and arrest absconders, promote visibility in the community, and deal with violations. So those are special monitoring activities that are conducted within the department on a regular basis. Parole violators are dealt with as prescribed, and their sentences are revoked before they abscond. Family consultations are being conducted by monitoring officials to establish the whereabouts of absconders. Families, caregivers, and communities are also prepared for the release of parolees and probationers. There's also partnership and collaboration with stakeholders, including civil society, in tracing of absconders. We have formalized partnerships with various stakeholders, such as NPOs, FPOs, community-based organizations, and government departments for successful reintegration of parolees and probationers. Halfway houses are established in partnerships with NPO, as indicated earlier, to place offenders without monitorable addresses and those who are due for parole placement but lack the support systems. So currently there are 3 halfway houses currently in operation. We have established service points which promote partnerships with different stakeholders for a successful reintegration of offenders and bringing community corrections services closer to the communities where the offenders are residing, especially in rural and remote areas. And this would assist to reduce absconding and violation of parole conditions by offenders. Continuous engagements with traditional leaders, councillors, and municipal government to assist in tracing absconders. Traditional leaders are informed of the offenders who are released back into their communities on parole. We are also reporting absconders to South African Police Services, and those absconders would be registered in the SAPS Criminal Record Center. SAPS and DCS jointly work together in conducting special operations, and this assists in tracing of absconders. Other interventions is with regards to consultation with government departments, including justice, crime prevention and security cluster departments, that is JCPS cluster departments. We participate in various clusters to ensure maximum collaboration is attained from departments in the cluster system. Coordination within the justice system continues to have beneficial effect on the work of the department. For example, the Department of Home Affairs assists in identifying absconders during applications of identity documents and passports. We are conducting izimbizos and traditional mahotla, which are utilized as a vehicle to deliver the message and to get assistance regarding absconders within communities. We are marketing our programs to communities Offenders lists are submitted to families, SAPS, traditional leaders, municipalities, etc., and to community structures prior release. And list of absconders is also being distributed in those forums. As the department, we are implementing our internal policies and procedures which outline the process of curbing absconders. Regarding challenges and mitigations, some have been indicated during the presentation. As community corrections, there is insufficient resources with regards to human capital, as indicated earlier that the ideal ratio should be 1:30, but nationally the ideal ratio of offender to community correction official is 1:58. And that is exacerbated by the high number of absconders. There's also a challenge of budget, lack of suitable vehicles for monitoring and supervision, that is insufficient allocation of funding for procurement of conducive transport to be used for physical monitoring in rural and mountainous areas. So with regards to mitigation on the challenges on insufficient resources, as the department, we are in a process of finalizing the organizational structure, which will include the tracing units. We are professionalizing community corrections to ensure that there is specialized training for our social reintegration officials and supervision officials and social workers and other professionals. Our EST emergency support team officials from the correctional centers are also being deployed to community corrections to conduct special monitoring. As indicated earlier, there's absorption of learners in community correction offices, engagement with relevant stakeholders in order to share resources and ensure community involvement. I've indicated earlier with regards to the RT57 contract, which we are currently procuring 500 vehicles, and those vehicles will be utilized by community corrections. The second challenge is with regards to the absconder population, which increased due to incomplete documents. With regard to this one, we are seeing in terms of mitigation, partnership and engagement with relevant departments and structures will be beneficial to the department. Implementation of district development model, and we also need to provide specialized training, that is on-the-job training, and implementation of integrated inmate management system will also help us. And there will also be a continuous consultations with families. We also have inadequate ICT infrastructure at some community corrections offices. That is insufficient computers, whereby capturing of information requires extensive driving, which contributes to delay in processing of information. So the mitigation would be cabling of community corrections offices, except those leased offices, and the implementation of wireless or Wi-Fi. The other challenge within community corrections is that we are still using manual process. There's no use of technology in monitoring of offenders. And as the department, the new electronic monitoring system will be implemented, which will assist in physical monitoring of offenders under the system of community corrections, as this is a human resource intensive task and it is costly. DCS is finalizing the process of the development and automation of the new electronic monitoring system solution in order to electronically monitor parolees and various other categories of offenders. This electronic monitoring system will enable the department to have real-time situational analysis of parolees' location once released from a correctional facility, and the information will be relayed to a central location for monitoring and decision-making in case of contravention of the parole conditions. So the EMS business case development is underway in partnership with CSIR. The last identified challenge is with regard to a lack of coordinated framework to specifically address absconders. The department will be designing a framework or model which will be implemented where absconding will be prevented and tracing measures by all stakeholders within communities will be explored. In concluding my presentation, Honorable Chairperson, we are saying that community correction creates a conducive environment for the reintegration of parolees and probationers through supervision, monitoring and rehabilitation, and ensuring that parolees and probationers comply with conditions of parole. The program provides for the continuing supervision and support of parolees, which is integral to community safety and reduce reoffending. Community corrections will be marketed extensively in order to get involvement of communities in the monitoring, rehabilitation, and reintegration of parolees and probationers to ensure a smooth reintegration process. And partnership is key within our environment, and we need to ensure that we partner with all relevant stakeholders. Fully capacitated community corrections will ensure effective monitoring of parolees and probationers. As indicated earlier, that we do have challenges with regard to human resources and also vehicles to conduct physical monitoring. So fully capacitated COMCO will ensure the physical monitoring of parolees and probationers, and continuous training of absconders will be implemented in order to restore confidence in the parole system. All absconders from the 1991 era to date will continue to be traced as they are still within community correction system. Technological developments like integrated inmate management system will support the tracing of absconders, and the implementation of the approved policies and procedures will contribute towards promoting corrections as a social responsibility. Thank you, Acting National Commissioner, and thank you, Honorable Chairperson. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Molepo. Acting Commissioner.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The point that I wanted to make is the point that part of the tracing exercise is to also check our own records within correctional facilities, because we have discovered that some of these absconders are actually already serving sentences, or they are in our remand detainee facilities. For example, when we were receiving a report from the Kokstad management area focusing on Ebongweni, our super maximum facility, we collected statistics indicating that 60 of the absconders are actually at Ebongweni. So it is important for us to integrate the work that we do in the incarceration and corrections branch, and also the work that we do in the community corrections, but also remand detention branch, so that we have a seamless value chain with regards to collection of information, analyzing it, and also applying it to make management decisions. That's the point that I wanted to make, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting National Commissioner. Honorable members, I now invite you to interact with the presentation as you would have listened to it and had gone through it. terms of the documents that were sent to us before today. I recognize Honorable Jano Engelbrecht, followed by Valmanivo Drachen, and then Ramo Lebeng. Is that Khomutso?
Yes, Chair, it's Khomutso.
It's written. I didn't know that. Thank you.
Using my colonial name.
Thank you for that. And then Nomatemba Maseko Jele to be the last. Thank you, Honorable Engelbrecht.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And thank you for the department for this presentation. Yes, I see that this is indeed a very problematic environment that these poor people find themselves in. So I don't want to go into details and state the obvious with great conviction. We all know what the problems are here. I'd rather try to maybe have a little discussion about positive contributions that can maybe alleviate problems that these people are facing with. So we know that the biggest problem, and it's very apparent, is lack of resources. And with the medium-term expenditure framework that I looked at, the budget's not going to. There's not going to be any improvement. In fact, there's going to be. We know there's going to be rather severe cuts until at least 23-24 financial years. It's also interesting to note that there's a direct correlation between the effectiveness when you look at the ratio of offenders and versus the amount of officers that work or the workload, with much better figures in terms of performance, and where there's a much heavier workload. Obviously, these guys are doing twice the amount of work that they are supposed to do, and I don't think that anyone in their right mind should have a expectation of a positive outcome under these circumstances. I am very encouraged by the development of the electronic monitoring system. Look, this has been used in other countries across the world with great success for many, many years. I'm thinking about these tamper-proof ankle bracelets that they put onto people, and then you don't need to use already scarce resources in trying to trace these people manually, because I mean, it is almost impossible to be able to do that. The problem that we sit with is that out of the total number of absconders, or the total number of people that's in the system, a third are absconders, which is, it doesn't look good. I also agree that we need to address the credibility and confidence of the parole system, but I think that is maybe another meeting all in itself, dealing with parole and things that's going on there. We can also maybe, after the department has developed this electronic monitoring system, think of ways and means to alleviate to some degree the extreme overpopulation problem that we sit with all over this department, in terms of different levels of offenders. You have petty criminals. They steal something in a cafe or something, and now they have to go and sit in a cell somewhere. It's costing us a lot of money. These guys don't really, is no real serious threat to the community. And I think if you, instead of sending them to jail, adding to the overpopulation problem, you install one of these electronic monitoring systems, and you have a very rigid system where you monitor these people, and they have to do some things in order to comply. You can take a lot of pressure off an overpopulated system, give a lot of relief to overworked officials struggling on a daily basis just to get things done. Maybe we can look, that will obviously entail having to relook at the HR structure, which is obviously problematic. But I think it's worthwhile looking into, especially knowing that we're going to experience more budget cuts going forward, which is only going to make these problems worse. And I have appreciation for the work these people are doing under extremely difficult circumstances. There's a lot of big expectations out there, and we have a real big problem in terms of the public perception about parole system and Department of Correctional Services, which we have to change. Otherwise, it's not going to get better. But yes, I understand that we have to address these issues in such a way that we don't set up people for failure, so to speak. I mean, the officer versus offender ratio is just, it is horrendous. Something has to be done about that. And I think if we can maybe concentrate on the electronic monitoring system, that might be a short-term alleviation, but again, maybe a little chat with our colleagues and friends at National Treasury, because as we know, money is in short supply, and these things unfortunately cost, there's a cost in terms of budget coupled with this or connected with this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Engelbrecht, Honorable Wilma Nieuweldregen, and welcome back.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and it's good to be back. Good morning to all the colleagues, and thank you to the department for your presentation. This is the first presentation that I receive of this kind about community corrections. So my questions might relate to that in terms of getting more clarity and getting more understanding about this area. On your slide 11, I see in one of the columns where it has the archived absconders and then the active absconders. So in your slide 8, I don't want to go through all of them, but your slide 8 at the bottom explains, what archived offenders are, pre-1991, etc. And then from the absconders, the active absconders, I'm assuming it's after 2004, and you have the documents, etc. So how many so it's been 18 years since 2004. So of the archived absconders since that time to date, the 17,000 absconders, is that what we have to date of archived absconders? If you could just confirm that figure. And then in your slide 14, in terms of traced absconders, only 1,400 out of the total that you have, that you put in slide 11, which is 32,000. So only 1,400. I'm still, I would need more clarity about how has it how has such a small number been achieved compared to, the huge number of absconders? And of course, this is after 2004, because you now have their documents, etc., and you have all the things they need. But still, it's only 1,400 that has been traced. Why so little? Why such a little number? And on the same slide, on the slide 12, sorry, the positions filled. The column, one of the columns indicates vacancies, but you have the number of funded positions. So the funded positions, I'm assuming the money is there, it is available, but the vacancy rate is incredibly high. But there is funding for those positions. So why is that the case, that the funded positions are not being filled? I'd like to understand why, it's not just about budget cuts, because there is money available for these particular positions, but there is still a high vacancy rate among these particular positions. And then on the last column, the ratio, the one person, it should be 1 to 30, that's ideal, but the current ratio is incredibly high. But we have funded positions that are not filled. And then I want to go to the Act itself. The Act talks about supervision committees, but your presentation doesn't say anything about supervision committees. So I would like to know who sits on these committees, on these supervision committees. Who are the members? What are their expertise? And also, do you mean to say that the supervision committees is for every community correction center? In South Africa, there should be a supervision committee to, assist the department. Excuse me. And then 500 vehicles that will be procured. For which financial year will that be? That National Treasury is supposed to assist the department to cover these vehicles. Is it for this financial year only, or did it include the past financial years? If you could just clarify that. And I think that's all I have. Oh, no, sorry, not yet. Oh, yes, no, that was all I had. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Velma. Mayor Ramulube.
Thanks, Chair. Can I kindly ask I'm having problems with my video. I don't know why. Can I kindly proceed without it, if Chair permits?
No, you can. They always do that when they don't want to show their faces. It's always a video or network. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I promise you it's not that case on my side. But Chair, basing from the colleagues that have, let me firstly welcome the presentation from the team of the DCS and also the thorough explanation from the Acting National Commissioner with regards to the tracing process. I would want to concur with my colleague on the electronic system that would be able to assist us with the tracing process, or assist the department to make it easier to be able to trace of absconders, not using the manual system, which for now, if we're being honest, it's not ideally producing results. So I would not speak much on it, as my colleagues has elaborated on it. Chair, I will base my question on the basis of the oversight visits that we did, especially in Jan, regarding the Correctional the community corrections. And I'll cite this first question with regards to the BOSPEC. Post the establishment of community corrections of BOSPEC, it was indicated that based on the oversight, it was 48, while the number of parolees and probationers was more than 2,000. And based on this presentation that we've received, speaking on the ratio process that says it's supposed to be 1/30, and they have a number of 1/58, which ideally would be the national ratio that they've given us. Is there any plans to increase this post-establishment? Is there any plans, especially if we have vacancies that or posts that are funded? What are the departmental plans on this, citing the backlog that already exists in the ratio system? Okay. Another one would be on the Barberton visit. As I indicated, I'll speak mainly on the oversight that we did. So my questions will be based on that. We noted whilst we're in Barberton that the community corrections officers are leased there, and the contract was going to expire on the 31st of May. Is there any plans to extend or get new officers for that Barberton office? What are the plans with regards to that? And we also found out that there were no social workers employed there. Is that an issue of the Barberton Community Center, or other community corrections officers also are having the similar problem of social workers not being employed? Chair, so those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Lene. Honorable Sekojele.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. And also good morning to our DM and our Commissioner, Acting Commissioner, and the team. Chairperson, my colleagues have covered a range of things. I have only 2 to 3 clarity questions, but let me appreciate, Chair, the work that the department is doing. Indeed, it's not about us always, looking for wrong things. We are here as a team, and then we want to see maybe as a team, how can we resolve on all these issues. But Chairperson, the of concern that one may want to raise this morning, it is the issue indeed of these funded vacancies. It is worrying, Chair, because if there are vacancies which are funded, the management must give that a priority, particularly with the problems that we have, unless maybe there is a reason why up to now those vacancies are not filled. But we'd request that let them make it a priority so that we can see how far that can take us in resolving these matters. Because, Chair, I think we definitely, budget is needed in this department. There's a load, too much load on the officials. The ratio is too high. And I know it is working with the in such an environment can really demotivate if you are not getting the resources that are required. So, but I would want to ask a question, Chairperson, clarity question on this issue of how do the department handle the issue of rejection of these parolees by the families? That is the first one, Chair. Apologies on that one. That is the first one. How do they handle the issue of rejection by the families? Because that also maybe might be a problem in terms of, exacerbate, I don't know, there's a term that is like escalating the issue of absconders. That is number one. Number two, it is the issue of, I just want to find out how is the department also handling the issue of the social workers, shortage of the social workers, because is that number of filling of vacancies maybe also impact on the shortage of the social workers? One would want to know that one, Chair. And then lastly, Chairperson, it is the issue of from the presentation, we hear that there is a less number of the absconders in the Eastern Cape area. There are two areas that they mentioned, but particularly I was interested on this one of the Eastern Cape, that I know that they are going to look into some of the mechanisms that are working in those areas and use them in the other areas. But I just want to find out that how come in the Eastern Cape we have lesser absconders when you would think that, especially if we want to relate that to the geographical space, there's no jobs most than in the Eastern Cape. You'd expect those people want to run away, go to Joburg and get for work. But the very people in Johannesburg are the ones that are absconding too much. And there are some smaller resources that they can keep them alive. I'll just to hear maybe some more information on that one, Chair. That is the last one. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Horn.
Thank you, Chair. Just one issue I think is also important as part of the broader picture in respect of community corrections, and that is the role of halfway houses. So if we could be appraised as to how many of them there are, what lessons the department has learned. We know that in some instances over the last few years, the attempts to set up new halfway houses has been met with some resistance. And at some stage, the Portfolio Committee was briefed to the effect that the success of halfway houses to a large extent do depend on whether it is situated in areas which facilitates or properly enables the reintegration into society of parolees, and then ultimately also whether the department is in a position to give us information as to what extent are those who are placed at halfway houses, to what extent do we also see some abscondees from those parolees versus those that ultimately are to join their families directly. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Horn. Acting National Commissioner and Ms. Molepo, can you please respond to the questions and comments made by the honorable members?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members for the questions. Let me also acknowledge the presence of the Deputy Minister, just to make sure that I still have a job. Honorable Chairperson, I did not do that. There are questions that have been asked that I'm going to request that colleagues assist with answering. Basically, the one of the halfway houses, the question on of clarity on the meaning of our statistics and definition with regards to absconders, archived, vis-a-vis those that are active. The issue of how do we deal with rejection by families, and the question on the less number of absconders in the Eastern Cape. The others I will then respond to, Honorable Chairperson. On the issue of the budget and the limited resources we have and how we apply that, we have also presented that one on the side of the other areas of work and the caseload with regards to other programs of the department. So when we look at the caseload on community corrections, we also look at that, just opposing it with the caseload also on correctional facilities. It is a serious challenge. Hence, we focus on ensuring that we apply the limited resources the best we can. With regards to filling of positions, the department, as with all other departments, is balancing the filling of positions with the human resource budgeting tool that Treasury has directed that we ensure that we stay within. Basically meaning that with regards to aligning the size of the public sector wage with the budget, we still have to cut the posts that we have in the establishment to fit within the human resource budgeting tool. That's number one. Number two, to make sure that we do not exceed the limited budget on compensation of employees, we then put in place a moratorium on the filling of posts in general, but specifically what we then did was to identify specific categories of posts as those that are prioritized, and it includes social workers, psychologists, criminologists, posts in the self-sufficiency space, the skills, education, rehabilitation space. But as I've indicated, the pace then becomes slow because we are trying to balance that with ensuring that we don't exceed the budget. And we don't commit to a point where we will not be able to meet the reduction of the establishment as required by the HRBP tool. So the social workers are part of the positions that we've identified for filling. But I must also indicate that with regards to complying with the HRBP tool, we are at an advanced stage, and as management, as recent as yesterday, we then took a decision that we will uplift the moratorium and allow levels lower than head office HR functions in the regions and in management areas some space with regards to managing the filling of positions to ensure that we pick up the pace but still stay within the budget. So we will see improvement with regards to that. On the issue of the structure and increasing posts in the establishment, I must just indicate that obviously we have to stay within the HRBP tool dictates. So we are not looking at increasing the posts, but what we are looking at is reducing the number of posts at head office, merging functions, head office and the region, the coordination functions, ensuring that we release more resources to fund posts that are within the HRBP tool at a coalface level where the services are rendered in offices of community corrections and in the correctional facilities. The structure that has been submitted to, and the Deputy Minister and the Minister have got sight of and have given concurrence to, has already indicated that we can release an estimated figure of around 26 million by just doing that reduction of overcapacity at head office and at the regional level to make sure that we release funds then to fill positions where they are most needed. We augment our capacity of the social workers with the auxiliary social workers, just to make sure that at least the basic tasks are performed so that we can release the capacity of those that are experienced to deal with more demanding tasks. The issue of Barberton office, we, through the Department of Public Works, are processing the extension, but as indicated during the oversight visit of the Portfolio Committee, we will be starting with the process of constructing a community corrections office in the Barberton management area. We have the designs, we have allocated the funds. We are going to do it as an own resource project, meaning that we are going to utilize offenders and our own professional and project management skills within the department. So we are well on our way in terms of making the point that we, on the targeted community corrections offices, we reduce the burden of renting, and we construct our own offices utilizing offender labor. I think the issue of the budget and the resources and the limited nature of that, what one can say is to appreciate the analysis given by the members that the department really needs funding to put it in a position that at least to the minimum, it can be able to perform as per its mandate. The JCPS cluster is measured on how it performs with regards to statistics. SAPS is with regards to the number of arrests. NPA and the justice part of it is with regards to the number of convictions and those that are sentenced. But all those numbers, they end up in correctional facilities. All those numbers end up in the parole system. And dangerous as they are, with the heinous crimes that they have committed, we are supposed to make sure that they are rehabilitated, they are reintegrated. So it's a quite a loaded task that needs the resources that match that task. We are the only department in the security cluster that is subjected to the HRBP tool, because we are taken like any other department of government, as compared to defense, as compared to SAPS and the NPA. So our establishment is controlled like any other government department. And we've made that argument to Treasury that our establishment can be controlled like that. It should be controlled by the analysis, statistics, the levels of crime, the content of the crimes that are committed, and the need, the depth of the need to keep our communities safe. On the statistics of Gauteng and KZN and the number of absconders being up, that correlates with the statistics with regards to the crimes that are committed in the country. In highly commercialized, industrialized areas, the levels of crimes are always up. So we need to then intensify the work that we do in those. The numbers of 1,416 in terms of what we are naming there as an achievement with regards to tracing the absconder reflects the work that we have been able to do within this financial year, with the department having declared tracing of absconders as a priority. We are hopeful that if we continue at this level, we'll be able to bring down the numbers significantly. That's why on a weekly basis, we actually monitor these numbers through the National Coordination Committee meeting that we have every Monday. We want to be very, very, very strict on ensuring that there is movement in terms of reduction of the numbers. But that 1,416 also reflects the challenges that we face with regards to the capacity that we have. Tracing of absconders for us is critical to also making it a point that we also deal with the issue of those that do not comply, those that violate the parole conditions. If we can make a progress on the tracing of absconders, it automatically means that we are also being very tight on making it a point that parolees don't violate their conditions. So we are also creating that work ethic that is very, very alert and agile in terms of the work that is done by our parole officers and the tracing teams. Honorable Chairperson, let me stop there and through your approval, request that the CDC and other colleagues from community corrections deal with the specifics that are more technical. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning again, Honorable Chairperson, and let me also acknowledge and greet our Deputy Minister. I will be responding on the question on halfway houses as to the role of halfway houses within the department. As indicated, we said that the halfway houses are being utilized to place offenders without monitorable addresses and those who are due for parole placement. So currently, there are 3 halfway houses in operation. So in Gauteng province, we do have 1 halfway houses at Naturena. We also have in LMN 1 halfway house, and we also have another halfway house at Free State, Northern Cape. So since inception of these halfway houses, the department has entered into formal agreements with 20 NPOs to manage halfway houses in the reintegration of parolees and probationers who lack support systems. And to date, we have reintegrated 721 parolees and probationers back into the community of their origin. So with regards to the question on statistics, Acting National Commissioner has already clarified that. Yes, we just need to confirm that the 17,211 is the archived absconders to date, as the question was asked by Honorable Velma Drachen. And the issue of 1,416 was confirmed by the Acting National Commissioner that it is an annual figure. So with regards to the Supervision Committee, so the Supervision Committee, it refers to the committee that is responsible for monitoring and evaluation of the correctional sentence plan in all community corrections offices. So in each community correction office, we'll have that supervision committee, and it will comprise of monitoring official and also the unit manager, like the head of community corrections, which are responsible for monitoring the implementation of the correctional sentence plan of the parolees. I think with regards to, the less numbers of absconders, it was covered. Honorable Chairperson, I think that's all, as Acting National Commissioner has answered most of the questions. Regarding the 500 vehicles, as requested, this is only for this current financial year, that is the 2021-2022. So those vehicles are going to be distributed. So they've already been procured for the current financial year. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and Acting National Commissioner and Deputy Minister.
Thank you. Honorable members, any follow-ups?
Chairperson.
Honorable Velma.
Honorable Jele first, Chair.
Honorable Velma Nevo Drachen.
Not a follow-up, but a new question that I missed prior, if it's okay, Chair. Slide 15 talks about learnerships, but I'm a little bit confused because it reads like learnerships placed at, or learners placed at community corrections to increase capacity of officials, okay? That's on slide 15. And then slide 18, on the mitigation column, it says absorption of learners at community corrections officers. So who gets the learnerships? Are the officials also getting learnerships, and do the inmates also get placed in community? I'm just a little bit confused. Do the inmates also get learnerships?
Thank you. Mr. Engelbrecht.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just looked at my notes here. I forgot something. A question about the data integration and the IT system of the department, which would in all probability lead to the prevention of tracing someone that's already incarcerated, or tracing someone that has actually in the meantime passed away or something like that, because it seems that there might be a bit of a problem in terms of the usage of data or the integration of data within the department itself. And then something that I don't know if it is appropriate, but maybe something worth noting going forward, talking about National Treasury and the allocation of budgets. Now we all know Correctional Services provides a very critical service, and I don't think it is conducive to anything good when a budget reduction have a potential to lead to a failure by the department to fulfill its constitutional mandate. I don't know the workings and going on in National Treasury, but maybe if the Deputy Minister can maybe write a letter or inquire about this, the methodology being used when reducing budget allocations, instead of across the board budget reduction, maybe assign priorities. Because with the current figures that we have, it's going to be extremely difficult for the department to function optimally and fulfill its constitutional mandate as things stand at this current moment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Janet.
Thank you, Chair. No, I just wanted to check, because the acting commissioner did say he was going to comment on the issue of rejection. I didn't hear that one. I might be missed it. I just wanted to hear that. I didn't hear that one. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, missed it. You can repeat it. Quick responses, Acting Commissioner and Ms. Moleb.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members. Let me just apologies, CDC. I had indicated that the CDC and the team will deal with the issue of rejection by families, because it has to do with the programs that community reintegration programs that are being implemented. But just to, yes, confirm, the issue of data integration and usage, the integrity of that is one of the problems that we have identified as a risk, and we are dealing with it in the department. Hence, I demonstrated that as one of the levels of integration is ensuring that statistics that we have in the community correction system correlates with the statistics or checks against the statistics that we have in the correctional facilities. That's why now we are picking up that, for instance, the example that I gave of Ebongwe, we're picking up that some of the absconders are actually already serving sentences, or they are actually awaiting, they are remand detainees awaiting finalization of their cases in the criminal justice system. So our IT modernization projects and the work that we are doing with the integrated justice system, IT projects, we're hopeful that they will assist with ensuring that we achieve that required level of data integrity. The issue of learnerships, the indication is that as we confirm those that would have gone through the learnerships and have succeeded to make it as correctional officials, we also allocate them to community corrections offices. Basically, the two slides are complementing each other. First is to indicate that already with those that we have absorbed, we have allocated some to community corrections, but to also indicate that the learnerships is identified as one of the solutions. So as we train new young members, we make sure that we don't only allocate them to correctional facilities. There is a quota, there is a number that we allocate to community corrections, especially because the tracing operations need the resource that is agile, young, and very active. The issue of National Treasury, it is our plea to the honourable members. We hope that this analysis finds itself also in the report of the Portfolio Committee to Parliament and other structures, because that would at least provide the necessary support. Every year we go to National Treasury and we motivate, we utilize the same caseload to actually motivate for correctional facilities and also for community corrections. But we still come out with the same budget reduction. And I've indicated that we're treated like any other government department. We don't fit within the definition of the security cluster. We are part of the JCPS cluster, but there are security cluster departments, and those are SANDF, those are South African Police Service. Hence, at the moment, South African Police Service is doing a recruitment of more than 10,000. We are still trying to put together the numbers to do a recruitment of 1,500. And that, as I've indicated, is still within the dictates of the HRBP tool, and ensuring that we don't overcommit over the years, because once you appoint a correctional official or a community corrections official, that becomes a commitment to government over the period of the career of that official. So we really plead for that support. But I must also indicate that the next step that we have identified to intensify our work on is on ensuring that we increase the monitoring on expenditure to identify areas where funds are not utilized efficiently and effectively, and close those taps, so that whatever allocation that we get as the department, as much as we can say is limited, but we make sure that we reduce the levels where the spending might not be effective and efficient. We are identifying those as we go, and we are putting in place measures to make sure that we are strict with regards to curbing that expenditure that is not aligned to our mandate, and ensuring that we are effective and efficient. So I'm going to request that the CDC then deal with the issue of the rejection by families. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Ms. Molepo.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, in terms of the question by Honorable Jele with regard to the rejection by the families as to how do we handle that, within community corrections, we do offer community correction reintegration programs. So we are saying that social reintegration, it starts as soon as the offender has been incarcerated. So what we mean is that as soon as the offender is incarcerated, then the family issues family consultation. It begins there, so that when the offender is ready for parole, the family will be ready to receive the parolees and probationers. So as soon as they are out on parole, prior to the parole, then the community corrections will confirm the addresses with the family. They will have those family consultations with families, prepare the families with regard to the parolees will be coming back, and then the offenders will be reintegrated back into their communities. So in terms of those communities, those families who have accepted the parolees, but after some time, then they reject the parolee, then the parolee will then go back to the center because there will be that loss of support system. Then the community correction officials will continue to conduct the family consultations, check other caregivers up until we confirm that there are other families who are willing to take the parolees back. So we do offer that from incarceration up until the community corrections, whereby those reintegration programs are being offered to the families. The family consultations are being conducted. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you very much to Acting National Commissioner and to you, honorable members. At this point, maybe if the Deputy Minister who had joined us was not with us when we started, so I can see he sneaked in. I'll allow him to make a few remarks before we wrap up, and then we go to our minutes.
Thank you very much, Chawe, for allowing me to sneak in just after the meeting had started. I'm sorry about that. Well, I don't have much to say, Chairperson, except to express our gratitude as the Ministry and the Department to the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services, particularly the subcommittee, for always ensuring us that this kind of interaction between ourselves, it is very much helpful to us. It gives us an opportunity also to urge you to try to be our partner in ensuring that the matter that the National Commission has just referred to, which is that even though we're part of the JCPS cluster, we're not really considered as a security cluster, and yet we are the one cluster that has to receive the department that has to receive the positive outcomes of the work that is done by other components in the structure. Because if you have more police who are able to arrest more people, we have more prosecutors and more judicial officers who are able to do their work properly to the extent that these people end up with us, then it means we need even more resources than they do. There has to be a commensurate amount in terms of human resources, especially to the number of people that are brought to us. So really appreciate the fact that the committee is concerned about the fact that we are under-resourced and yet we have such a difficult task to do, because we are having to look after people who have been rejected by their families, by society, and have been condemned by the justice system. People who in their nature, in the main, are expected to try to avoid the law, to try to avoid abiding by the prescripts of the Constitution and the law. Because when you have a person who has been rejected and then you take him back to community, the community that rejected him, then it means we are running a risk as a state, as a system. So it's important, therefore, that we get as much support as we can from Treasury through the help of the Portfolio Committee. We'll continue to strive to do more and more to satisfy the expectations of the committee in this regard. And lastly, Chairperson, in our very first days in the department, we were excited about the smart of an electronic monitoring system, which had been initially introduced in the department, but because of certain shenanigans apparently that took place, that thing was, when we're not able to move forward with it. I'm happy that the department is reporting that the CSIR is assisting in ensuring that we do get that system, because indeed it will alleviate the work that is on the shoulders of the officials who have to be going around monitoring the movements and activities of these parolees. Thank you very much once again, Chairperson and honorable members.
Thank you, Delisda. Thank you, Deputy Minister, for those closing remarks. We take note of the issues that were raised in the presentation by the Acting National Commissioner and yourself in particular, as we do our work going forward and trying to make this department sustainable in what it does. Thank you for that. It's well noted. Colleagues, I think we're wrapping that matter there. And now we'll do our own internal work. Sia, if you're ready with a set of minutes.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, for releasing us. I was optimistic.
Honorable members, those are the minutes of the 11th of March. You remember last time there was a bit of a confusion. So these are correct ones here.
Yes, Chair. These are the corrections where we dealt with state patients.
We will go through page by page and check corrections, and then thereafter, members will move those who would have been present.
Wilma has her hand raised.
Thank you, Sia. Honorable Neivold.
Yes, Chair, apologies. Last night I was making corrections on another device that I don't have it now. I just wanted to ask the Secretariat to check the spelling of patients, the patients that, like you wait versus patients of sick people. So I think it's supposed to be patients ending with a TS, not patients ending with a CE. I believe that's on page 3.
Noted, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that correction. Honorable Engelbrecht.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, similar correction. The date is stated as mag. It shorts an R. That's all.
Okay, did you pick that up, Sia?
Yes, Chair, we're picking them up. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Do I have any mover for the adoption of the minutes?
I'll move for the adoption, Mr. Chair.
Honorable Engelbrecht moves. Any seconder? We know it can't be Horn or Valma. It will have to be Maseko Jail.
Don't tell me and Honorable Valma what we can and can't do.
I second.
Thank you, Honorable Maseko Jail. Those that were present in the meeting, thank you. The minutes have been duly adopted, Honorable Horn. Is there any other set of minutes here? Thank you. 18th of March. You have to fix that March now, which Honorable Engelbrecht raised. So it's R before the C. Thank you. Go ahead. Those were people present in the meeting. Okay, that's your set of minutes. Any corrections, Honorable Horn?
Yes, Chair, if I may, I was present at that meeting. I think the minutes is reflected as an apology on my side, but I was present. Thanks.
Okay, let's check that. Sia, do you recall this? Because the minute says he was absent actually. So can you just confirm that?
We will check our records, Honorable Chair, and correct the minutes.
Okay. Thank you for picking that up, Honorable Horn. Honorable Nievold.
Apologies, Chair. On page 3, the second point, it said DCS with a small s. I think it should all be caps. DCS should all be caps.
Okay, thank you for that.
And there's another correction. I can't find it. My eyes are a bit blurry now. I will check again though and get back to you.
Okay. All right. Thank you for those areas you picked up. Do I have a mover for the minutes?
Chairperson, I move for the adoption of the minutes. Thank you.
Honorable Maseko Jele, who was present, is moving. Any seconder?
I will second, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Yano. Honorable Engelbrecht seconds, and the minutes are duly adopted. Do we have a set of minutes for today's here?
Oh, Chair, today's minutes, we still need to draft them. We're up to date now, Chair.
Okay. All right. Thank you to the Secretariat for those sets of minutes. Thank you to all of you, honorable members, for your participation and the interventions you have made in the presentation. Thank you very much. The time now is 11:10. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.